There's a few moments in life where your world kind of just stops, but I was like, this is why.
Beth, the Leipoldts from Minnesota, is candid about her son Cooper living with Waardenburg syndrome.
He was essentially born, he didn't pass his newborn hearing screening in the hospital, which is mandatory before leaving. Essentially, we were told this is not that atypical. He probably just has fluid in his ears. Come back in a few weeks.
Social media helped alert Beth to what Cooper's diagnosis could be.
He actually was born with like a white forelock, so like a white chunk of hair, and the rest was dark. I had happened to post in like a mom Facebook group I was in asking like, does anybody, were any kids like this? Did it stay? And somebody actually commented like, I've heard that can be an indicator of Waardenburg syndrome. Started Googling, which can be good and bad. And as I was reading, it was like a checklist of his physical features because he had wider set eyes with kind of a unique shape and color. And then I got to hearing loss or deafness often being an accompanied part of it. And it was kind of at that point that everything like clicked. I brought it to our primary and I was like, I think this is what he has. And he's like, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Doctors began tests on Cooper.
We got his official diagnosis when he was 6 weeks old, that he was profoundly deaf, both ears. But like you could tell that they were realizing things as they were testing, but obviously we didn't get answers until the end. So it was just kind of a stressful, like, is he responding? Is he not? Even though we had an idea going into that appointment, it still was jarring. And I think it's just hard when it's, hard news is coming from like strangers, essentially. You don't want to like fully react, but then, you have to kind of pull yourself together and leave and get back to your car and go on with life. It's one of those things that I struggled with in the beginning. It's not a heart issue. It's not cancer. It's not something that's, going to be fatal. It was almost like I didn't feel like I deserved to be grieving as much as I felt like I was. I just was kind of all over the place for a while, apart from denial. I don't think I ever really went through denial because I was like, this is very clearly what we're dealing with. It's hard to accept. It's hard to like grieve essentially the child you thought you would have. But there's also a quote that I've always loved that's something about like being able to grieve that and move past it makes room for the child that you do have and the way that they're going to help you grow.
Waardenburg syndrome is a genetic condition that affects the coloring of skin, hair, and eyes. It can also cause hearing loss, according to the Cleveland Clinic.
He still has the white forelock. It kind of comes and goes. It's pretty noticeable lately. His eyes are super, super blue. They have that wider space. He has a really flat nasal bridge and a super small nose. GI issues. He had a little bit of that when he was little, but really grew out of it. Obviously, the being deaf and hard of hearing, that was the biggest obstacle.
At first, Beth was nervous about how Coop would be received.
When you Google, you get the best and worst case scenario of everything. When I was looking at pictures, there were certain things that it just freaked me out in the beginning because I was like, you can tell that these people are a little bit different or do have a genetic disorder. It's not that Cooper doesn't have any of those qualities, it's that I've really learned to see the beauty in them.
Beth and her husband weighed their options and decided a cochlear implant was best for Coop when he was 9 months old.
It's actually an outpatient procedure, which a lot of people are surprised to hear. You have to have an auditory nerve in order for cochlear implants to function. So they cut behind the ear. They lift the skin and the muscle. They will drill a tiny little well in the skull just to be able to set that magnet portion in so it doesn't push the skin out. So there's a magnet that sets under the skin about here on most people. And then the piece that is inside connects to that and it gets threaded into the cochlea. And that has an electrode array. So I think he has 21 electrodes on each side. And those are what then once that external processor's on and the magnet's on, he can hear. But if he pops that magnet off, he can't hear. It bypasses the regular anatomy of the ear for the most part. And he's essentially hearing with his brain instead of his ear.
Is this confusing? I'm sorry. Oh. Do you hear that?
They were turned on about a month later. They have to wait for swelling to go down and incisions to heal and stuff. It was activation day is what they call it. But he was hearing pretty low volume of things, probably not even voices.
You're deaf.
Yeah. So I would say it was still a solid 6 months before I really felt like he was hearing most things and starting to verbalize as well. And then once he did, it really it took off. And I mean, it went in ebbs and flows for sure. But yeah, now he his vocabulary, some days I think is better than mine.
When you take your cochlear implants off though, what does it sound like at night?
Peace and quiet.
It sounds like peace and quiet. I'm jealous.
Coop, now 5, has a pretty typical life. He attends mainstream school and also has a class with a curriculum specifically designed for deaf and hard of hearing kids.
I don't think I ever feel sorry for Coop. I feel sorry for myself sometimes that I can't turn my own hearing. I think he feels sorry for me that I can't turn my hearing off. Like, I think there was a video a while ago where he told me I just needed to get cochlear implants, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just call the doctor up.
What's that sound?
It's a crazy sound.
But tell me, what is it?
I think it's a bathroom fan. His personality. He's confident in who he is, and I know part of that is our doing in terms of like, we've always just been very open about like, this is how you hear. It's kind of a superpower. Like, you get to turn it on and off when you want.
I have a question. Yeah?
And he also, I think, just automatically has learned to read lips. Even when his implants are on, if you watch him, he's actually looking at your mouth most of the time that he's interacting versus like at your eyes. Like, he's just learned to accommodate.
Beth says Coop is aware of his hearing situation and cleverly uses that to his advantage.
We've always kind of let him lead with that. We obviously tried to get him to wear them as much as we could because we knew it was important, but also it's overwhelming. There's times when I'm sick or when I'm overwhelmed that I'm like, I wish I could shut sound off. Like, I don't blame you.
Duplicated is a funny word.
Like if there were 2 Coopers, you would be duplicated.
If there was 100 of you, you'll be duplicated.
My like approach to that has always been, if he takes them off, usually I would try again a few minutes later. If he whips them off again, I would give it longer and try. Otherwise, I would just be like, okay, come back to it when you want. And I think that really created like a good relationship for him with them. He knows that he can take breaks as needed. And like, he really does utilize that at school still when he needs to. I think probably a lot more last year than he did this year. But there are also those moments where like, he just doesn't want to listen to something that's being said and he'll whip them off. Or, the other thing he likes to do is cover his real ears. And I'm like, that doesn't do any good for you. Like, you have to take your implants off.
Beth shares their journey on social media, where Coop is quite the character.
What are you gonna do when we get home?
What's my favorite itchy? I like you,
Are you singing Bruno Mars? I think the biggest thing for me that I remind myself of is he is an entertainer. Like, he likes to be the center of attention. He likes to make people laugh. It would be very different if he was this like shy and reserved kid that I was constantly putting out there. It's how I feel. So that's one aspect. I've started talking to him about it, like especially during like the car chats and stuff. We talk about it. You drive me home?
But I'm not going up yet.
People come up to us and recognize us, now, and he realizes like, oh, they watch our car chats.
Sit still at church.
You think people do at church?
Give flowers to dead people.
Their experience led Beth to write a book about inclusion.
Our story and just sort of some of the things that we go through are resonating with more than just parents of deaf and hard of hearing kids. Parents of any kid who maybe just has to do things a little bit differently. And so it sort of came to me like, okay, what if we sort of took these stories or, these real kids and matched each one of them with a letter from the alphabet. It was important for me to do like the person first aspect. So like C is for Cooper. And then it talks about being deaf in like a really child-friendly way. And so each letter is a different kid, all based on real kids with a different diagnosis.
For other families facing challenges, Beth stresses to still enjoy every moment.
Make sure you still enjoy your baby being a baby, because it's easy to get so caught up in the appointments and the chaos and the later on all of the therapy and that kind of stuff and like forget to just be. It's so worth it to have that connection and just be able to connect with somebody who like knows what you're feeling, even if they can't make it better or might have advice to offer you. Just that human connection is so important.
For more info on Beth's book, visit bethandcoop.com. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Andrea Swindle.